Karuna Are there any songbooks? Tamada Se sanga napaya kande narotamada Se sanga napaya kande narotamada Yanimo Premadam Karuna Acho Anilo Premadam Karuna Acho Eno Prabhu Hota Kela Acharya Tapo Eno Prabhu Hota Kela Acharya Tapo Krishna, Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Raj Maharaj ki, Radeva ki, Shri Lakshmana Sringa Deva ki, Shri Radha Govinda Madhava ki, Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki, Shri Madhavendra Puri Tirubhav Maha Mahotsava ki, Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadire Nevasesha Sunyavadi Paschachare Shatarine Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur. Jaya Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur. No, I don't think so, because we're not going to read the purport. The purport is very, very long, and of course it's related to the subject, but it's not directly related, because it's an interesting verse which covers a wide spectrum of devotional life, and it's particularly aimed or directed towards Madhya. This is from Chaitanya, I hope we got the right verse, Chaitanya Charitamrita chapter, Madhya Lila, chapter 17, 185. Everyone can understand English? Okay.
Tout le monde comprend l'anglais?
Yes. Okay. Dharma stapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Puri goshani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Puri goshani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara. Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Puri goshani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara. Ladies.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Dharmastapana hetu sadhura vyavahara.
Puri goshani raye acharana se dharmasara.
Puri gosani raye acharana se dharmasara. Well, if I had the book, I had to have an English one. I don't have an English one. Anyone have? Never mind. We'll just read the translation. Translation. A devotee's behavior establishes the true purpose of religious principles. The behavior of Madhavendra Puri Goswami is the essence of such religious principles. Who knows who spoke this verse to who and where? Chaitanya Charitamrita, a very, you could say, very important verse, something to reflect upon. This verse is spoken by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Do you know where?
Remuna? No?
Almost right. They're all transcendental. Ramuna, Vrindavan. We hear about Ramuna later on when Lord Chaitanya tells about the story of the great devotion of Madhavendra Puri.
Going the way to going to Jagannath Puri.
When he arrived in Mathura Vrindavan, he met one Brahmana who went to meet this Brahmana when he saw Lord Chaitanya was in ecstasy. They both were in ecstasy. Mahaprabhu was curious, what is the cause of such ecstasy? And he explained that he was so fortunate to have received the association of somebody. Who was that somebody? Madhavendra Puri himself. That's what I understand. When my memory serves me right. That he had the association of Madhavendra Puri. And so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then glorifying Madhavendra Puri's behavior, which establishes the behavior of a devotee, establishes true purpose of religious principles. It's not just a matter of rules and regulations, not just a matter of philosophy, paraphernalias, dresses, identification with a particular group. By behavior, we hear this theme, or let's say principle, many times is mentioned, and it's for instance, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Puri and Sanatana Goswami came to Puri, and Lord Chaitanya explains that actually a devotee doesn't just preach philosophy, but he also shows by personal example, practicing. This is acharya. Genuine acharya means one who teaches by example. So Madhavendra Puri was an ideal example of an acharya in our parampara, very significant part in our parampara disciplic succession, establishing ideal behavior for a Vaishnava. And that is really the essence, Prabhupada. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami said, the essence of such religious principles, the behavior. It's even if you have a wonderful philosophy, it might be correct, but without the appropriate behavior, the growth and the effectivity will not be there. So behavior, etiquette is essential in our spiritual lives to accompany whatever practices or philosophy may be there. We'll move on, but this is just a general stabilizing verse. These are different verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jai Shri Madhava Puri Krishna Prema Pura Bhakti Kalpa Tururu Teno Patama Ankura. All glories to Sri Madhavendra Puri, the storehouse of all devotional service unto Krishna. And then Krishnadas Kaviraj gives an indication as to who is Madhavendra Puri. Does anyone know who he is? No, the other way around. Ishwara Puri is a disciple of Madhavendra. I wasn't thinking in terms of that, in terms of his constitutional service in Goloka Vrindavan, let's say. Many of you may know this. Most of the associates of Lord Chaitanya, or those who are part of his appearance in this world, are eternal associates of Krishna. They expand to assist the Lord in his pastimes. Who remembers who Madhavendra Puri is? Incidentally, there's no mention of Ishwara Puri as to his constitutional position, but Madhavendra Puri is mentioned also by Kavi Karnapura in the Gaur Ganadesh Deepika. And it's also indicated here, more or less, without necessary such clarification, but it is indicated here. All glories to Sri Madhavendra Puri, the storehouse of all devotional service unto Krishna. The storehouse, all devotional service. He is a... Pardon? Maybe a gopi. Yeah, maybe. Yes! He is a desire tree of devotional service. And Kavi Karnapura says that he is actually a Kalpavriksha tree, from whose association any relationship with Krishna can be awoken. In his association, you can, whatever your relationship with Krishna is, it can be, it's not like he's in one bhava and you can only, you have to follow him, you're only going to get that spirit of devotion. But in his association, no matter what your relationship with Krishna is, it can blossom, it can awaken. He's a Kalpavriksha. And it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. Prabhupada and all of our acharyas refer to this, that, and in the purport Prabhupada says, Sri Madhavendra Puri, also known as Sri Madhava Puri, belonged to the disciplic succession from which succession? Come on, somebody other than... Yeah, and through, who's our Sampradaya Acharya? Madhavacharya. Through Madhavacharya, the Madhva Sampradaya. And Madhavendra Puri was a greatly celebrated sannyasi. Who remembers his spiritual master? Yes.
Well, basically, it's the Ishwara Puri. Ishwara Puri.
Ishwara Puri, we just heard that, is the disciple of Madhavendra Puri. Who is the spiritual master of Madhavendra Puri? Lakshmi Pati Tirtha. Lakshmi Pati Tirtha. Of course, Madhavendra Puri is, you could say, the spiritual master of everyone in one sense. But even God, we are reading, I don't know when we were reading yesterday somewhere, even God himself takes a spiritual master. Otherwise people will take this excuse. Well, Krishna never had a spiritual master. Lord Chaitanya never had a spiritual master. I don't need a spiritual master. And it's easy to answer, but still people use this as excuses sometimes. It's an essential feature of, say, of the disciplic succession. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the third disciplic descendant from Sri Madhavendra Puri. Lord Chaitanya took initiation from. You should be able to get this one. Ishvara Puri. Well done. Third time lucky. The process of worship in the disciplic succession of Madhvacharya is full of what?
Bliss.
Bliss, not necessarily. The type of what type of service? Full of what? They're very into rituals, all kinds of ritualistic ceremonies. They're very into it. Very much the Aishvarya Bhav, very ritualistic, very everything's like, just like this. With hardly a sign of love of Godhead. Hardly a sign of love of God. We talk of love of God, we're talking in general, real terms. It's like if you love somebody, say for instance your wife, husband, is it ritualistic? You come home, welcome home, my lord and master of the house. There might be sometimes when things are not going so well, the wife may treat you like that, or the husband may treat his wife like that. But it's spontaneous, it's a natural interaction which should be there in actual love. There's no question of rules and regulations, it's spontaneous. Doesn't manifest, it's not there in the Madhva Sampradaya. Sri Madhavendra Puri was the first person in that disciplic succession to exhibit the symptoms of love of Godhead. The first person. Now there's a very famous verse. This verse is, practically speaking, I think I've got the wrong one here. I had it in a different order, but it doesn't matter. When Krishna left Vrindavan, how did Radharani feel? That's not a difficult question. At least those who know have heard about it. Was she happy? Some wives maybe, or some, it's not exactly wife you could say, but sometimes you may be relieved when the husband gets lost. But was that Radharani's mood?
No.
No. How did she feel?
Separation.
Yeah. Inconceivable deep separation. I mean, beyond conception practically. Her separation was so intense. Unbearable. I'm getting to that right now. Unbearable separation. Not a moment could pass without her consciousness being absorbed in Krishna. She couldn't forget him. It's not possible. Try as she may, but she couldn't. So absorbed. And this is one of the verses which she spoke. A very famous verse. Very, very famous. Ai Dina Dayadra Nata He Mathura Nata Kadavalo Shase Vidayang Tvad Aloka Kataram Daita Brahmyati Kim Karotyam. Prayer and separation. O compassionate Lord of the poor and humble, O Lord of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Without seeing you, my heart has become very much afflicted. O my beloved, I am overwhelmed. What shall I do now? Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj says, this is the purport, that as the diamond Kaustuba jewel is the most precious amongst all rare, valuable jewels, this shloka is the Rasa Kavya, the best verse in the entire treasury of rasa poetry. Actually, this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani herself. It was Radha's pathetic cry to Shyamasundar, who had gone to Mathura, leaving her alone, desperate in Vrindavan. Radharani's mercy brought this same verse from the mouth of Madhavendra Puri. You remember when this verse came from his mouth? Many things come from our mouths. I don't think this verse comes from our mouths very often, only when we read it. Some other things come. You remember, Sundar?
But before he was leaving his body, no?
Yes. You may remember at the time of his leaving his body, what was happening at that time. Do you remember? He quoted this verse. He felt so fallen and so helpless in that situation that he felt like he was crying and crying, I failed to attain the Lord of my life, I'm helpless, I'm hopeless. He was like desperate. And then what happened? Of course, if you're thinking like that, then you were thinking of the Lord of your life all the time. But he felt so unqualified, you could say. So what happened then? Somebody appeared on the scene.
Not something to say when you are Brahman realized.
Pardon?
Not something to say when you are Brahman realized.
Yes, well, who was that who appeared on the scene? A very famous person, and a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. Had many disciples. Who can remember some of Madhavendra Puri's disciples? We've heard one, Ishwara Puri. Nityananda. Sometimes it's said that he's a disciple of Madhavendra, sometimes it's said he's a disciple of Lakshmi Bhatti. Both are mentioned.
Both of them.
Yeah, both.
And he
both
receives the mantra from Lakshmi Bhatti.
Excuse me?
He receives the mantra from Lakshmi Bhatti.
Yeah. Well, they're both mentioned there. He received his mantra from there. But he took Madhavendra Puri as his spiritual master. But so both are mentioned. Who else? Advaita Acharya. I mean, look, huh? I'm a who? No, don't mention. No. Leave him till last. Last but not least. Many others, huh? I can't remember. I think Paramananda Puri was also, I think, disciples. So many disciples he had. Famous personalities. He was held by all the genuine Vaishnavas as the greatest devotee. To speak of Advaita Acharya and Nityananda, who are expansions of Godhead himself. And of course, as this incident which was mentioned just now, Ramachandra Puri, who was an example of, sometimes in past times, examples, people take different roles, to show example, positive, negative. We have this sometimes occurring. Even great personalities sometimes take a negative role to show the effects of negativity. So Ramchandra Puri is, who is he in Krishna Lila? He's one of those, huh? Jatila, is he? He's one of those. He's one of those in Vrindavan who's always, finding fault. Can't stop finding fault. I don't know if anyone in ISKCON, I don't think anyone in ISKCON follows in that party. We never find fault with anyone, do we? Except, especially we never find fault with ourselves. I don't find fault with myself. I'm not in that party. I only find fault with everybody else because they're all faulty except for me. Common thing, isn't it? I think we may be in Jatila's disciplic succession. So Ramchandra Puri was definitely in that line, and he took great pleasure in finding fault in everyone he could, and even if it wasn't, he would create a situation to justify finding a fault in them. He was expert, really expert. Papa said we should be expert whatever we do, so he was really expert in that. First class. First class fault finder. In that situation, he came into the room where Madhavendra Puri was lying in his last moments, and Madhavendra Puri is feeling intense separation from the Lord of his heart, repeating the words of Radharani. He is saying, "What is this? You're crying at this moment. You shouldn't be doing this. You should be equipoised, steady, and you should be meditating on the Brahman." Right? So what did Madhavendra Puri say? Get out of here! Get out of this room! If I should leave my body seeing the face of a person like you, I would not. What is my fate? He wasn't very happy to hear this statement. So Ramachandra Puri left. Of course, it's all part of the teaching lessons. So Ishvara Puri, however, received the full mercy of Madhavendra Puri. Why? Service. And not just, yes, I'm doing service, I do what I like. Right? When I like, how I like. That's not unalloyed service. That's still mixed. It may be connected, but it's not pure devotional service. What was Ishvara Puri's service?
He took care of
Pardon?
spiritual master.
Excuse me?
He took care of his spiritual
Yes, and especially he was even cleaning up the stool and whatever. He was cleaning there was nothing he wouldn't do for his Guru Maharaj. Whatever his Guru Maharaj wanted, that was his life. This is the life of a Vaishnava. It's a Prabhupada's life. Anything for the service of his Guru Maharaj. Vishwanath Chakravarti. So this is the instruction of the spiritual master is life and soul of the devotee. It is my only, he says, it is my only what? Sadhana. My only practice is the instruction. It's not the detail, it's the instruction. Whatever that instruction is, that is my sadhana. And it is also my sadhya. Sadhya means the goal of life. Whether I'm in heaven or hell, it doesn't matter. All that matters to me is the instruction of my spiritual master. His life. And Prabhupada took that verse, or that statement of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, practically speaking, as we could say, as the inspiration, the strength for his preaching Krishna consciousness. This verse, which is we can't enter into it, we can only hear about it. It is described, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes this verse is only understood by only 3 persons can actually enter into the depth of this verse. No other person. Radharani, Mahaprabhu and Madhavendra. No one else, he said. Only they can grasp the depth of this verse or enter into the mood of this verse. Very special mood. And this is why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so much, you could say, relished discussing the pastimes of Madhavendra Puri. Pritivite Rupana Kari Gela Premankur Shri Premankurera Viksha Chaitanya Thakur. Madhavendra Puri sowed the seed of ecstatic love for Krishna within this material world and then departed. If you want, we won't have time, but if you want to read, maybe tonight we'll read it. If you want to read something about these ecstatic, let's say, manifestations of Madhavendra Puri, you can read from Chaitanya Bhagavat, when Madhavendra Puri met Lord Nityananda. Ecstatic pastime. We might read it if we're still alive this evening after evening arti. Krishna allows. That seed which Madhavendra Puri sowed later became a great tree in the form of And if you read chapter 9 of the Adi Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a wonderful description there of the tree of devotional service. All the various branches and fruits and everything described there in terms of the various devotees. That great tree, it says here, that great tree in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And all the devotees take different places within that great tree of bhakti. Different limbs, different natures. Different fruits are produced. They're all prema, love of Godhead, but they may have so many different varieties. A tree in this world, well, we don't know if I can see any fruit trees from here. We have an oak tree. There's an oak tree there. I don't know if there's any fruit trees within vision. Maybe not. But there are some fruit trees over there. You have some apple trees. You have some plum. What else? Cherry. What else do you have? Fig. A few others. Kiwi tree.
Kaki.
We used to have kaki persimmon. Still got it, I think. It's still there. A few trees are there. Have you ever seen a mango growing on the apple tree? Be nice, wouldn't it? One day you go out there, see your apple tree, and there's hundreds of mangoes growing on there. Not only mangoes, there's also bananas and oranges and grapes, everything growing on the tree. That would be quite a revolution. Maybe they're working on these things. They may have some method of a little bit of that. But this tree of devotional service, every variety of fruit is available. Every variety. By desire. By desire. Pure desire. The seed of the tree was first sown in Navadvip. The birth site of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then the tree was brought to Purushottam Kshetra, Jagannath Puri, and then to Vrindavan. The seed fructified first in Srila Madhavendra Puri, and then in his disciple, Sri Ishwara Puri. And of course, Lord Chaitanya took that seed and the fruits everywhere. In the 9th chapter of the Lila, Chaitanya Lila, in Adi Lila, you see how Lord Chaitanya is lamenting, How can I alone distribute so many fruits? They're unlimited. Therefore I ask everyone in the universe, he says, not just those born in India, everyone in the universe, to take to devotional service, distribute these fruits everywhere. Yasmai datum chorayan kshirabandam gopinata kshira chora bidubut Shri Gopala padurasid vashasan yat prematang madhavendrang natosmi. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Madhavendra Puri, who was given a pot of sweet rice, stolen by Sri Gopinath, celebrated thereafter as Shira Chora. Being pleased by Madhavendra Puri's love, Sri Gopal, the deity of Govardhan, appeared to the public vision. So this sets the scene for the basic story which we narrate. Yesterday we heard two other famous verses of Madhavendra Puri from the when we were reading or hearing from Prabhupada yesterday. The two verses were quoted in Prabhupada's lecture yesterday. So we won't go over those, how to, goodbye. I wish you all goodbye, my morning bath. So this is a good devotee, a good verse for devotees. All my rituals, goodbye. Morning bath, goodbye, and so on and so forth. So we're not on that platform. We need them still. Anyway, that's another thing. But the pastimes of Madhavendra. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and decided to go to Jagannath Puri from Navadvip, on the way, as we heard earlier, he stopped off in where? Many places, but in relationship to Madhavendra Puri, you remember where he stopped? Someone mentioned the name earlier on, Ramuna. He stopped in Ramuna. He was accompanied by several of his associates, Nityananda, Jagadananda, a few others, and a few others were with him on the journey. And he stopped there. He was in ecstasy. Lord Chaitanya was in complete ecstasy with a deity there, is a very famous deity. How many of you have been to Ramuna?
Myself. I spent 2 weeks there.
Oh, wow. Fortunate soul. Fortunate soul. Ramuna. No one else has been to Ramuna? Maybe one day. I haven't been there for about over 20 years. A few times we stopped. And probably changed now, like most of these secluded, like hidden little places, you know. Only, generally speaking, only those who are really serious go. And after a while it becomes popular, you know, especially when ISKCON builds a dharm shell there. And foreigner devotees start to stay there, and then people realize they can make some money there, so they start opening shops, and before you know it, one thing after another, other people are coming there, and it becomes like Vrindavan, and it's like, you know, whoa, so crowded.
Ramon is still...
Is it still a little quiet?
Yeah, Maharaja.
I haven't been there for 20 or more years. Same with Untitled Chapter, I haven't been there.
Protected, yes.
Okay, so it's still a little protected home there, not so famous. But for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, this is one of the gems, this is one of the real special spots where Lord Chaitanya stopped there in the temple of, the deity's name is? Shir Chora Gopinath, which means, someone else besides Parangati Prabhu, please keep quiet. I know it's not easy to keep quiet, but sometimes you have to.
Stealer of the sweet rice.
Yes.
Stealer.
The thief. He stole. You can imagine. The deity. Well, everyone else is actually a thief. We're stealing from them. But in this pastime, it appears that the deity was a thief. He enjoyed this pastime like anything. Even this principle of stealing originates in Krishna. Everything comes from Krishna. But when Krishna does it, it's like Krishna did in Vrindavan. He was always stealing things for the neighbouring gopis and so on. Huh? Stealing their milk products and whatever. Doing very many things. All has its... But that, when Krishna does it, everyone is in ecstasy. Yes, the bliss just explodes. And when other people do it, we explode. I'll kill you! Who stole my mobile? Krishna does it. They can't help but be in bliss. So, yeah, the deity stole kheer. It's not sweet rice in its original form, it's condensed milk. Kheer means condensed milk. And if you go there, to this very day, they offer many, many pots of this condensed milk every day to the deity. And in the evening you can get this condensed milk. It's amazing.
It's so wonderful.
Ooh.
I've never tasted something.
Never tasted. It's just not of this world. It's incredible.
For the same taste, you know?
First time I got this condensed milk was in 1977.
Wow.
And I didn't go to Ramuna that year. I went a couple of years later. But in 77, the devotee who was assisting me, his name was Shastra Chakshus in Manor. And he went to India that year. The year before we went, we didn't go to Puri. That year they went to Puri. And they went through Ramuna.
Wow.
So he was very, so kind, indebted to him. He lives in Australia now, but I'm really indebted. He bought a whole bunch of these little pots, like they do. They put it in little big pots, and they put it in little pots. Yes, little pots of this condensed milk, and it lasts ages. And he brought them back in his bag,
Wow.
And he gave me one of these pots of condensed milk. I'm starting to taste it now. When's breakfast?
No, Maharaj is right.
Hmm?
The taste remains in the mind. Maharaj is completely right.
Yeah, stays in
It's
mind.
they remain in the mind all the time.
Hey, it's incredible. And it was so good. And I couldn't resist it. But then there was still a clay pot. It's in a clay pot. You know, it's not like in these plastic pots. In a clay pot. So it gets stuck to the clay pot, you see. Every day, for weeks, I was breaking a little bit of the clay pot off and eating the clay pot. And I was feeling just as much ecstasy as I was taking the actual condensed milk. It was just amazing. For weeks, I was eating a little piece of this clay pot. Because it touched that condensed milk. Incredible. But such an experience, anyway. So anyway, Lord Chaitanya arrived. Shudha yukta hanaya shuneya jana Shri Krishna charane se paya prema dana. One who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of Godhead at the lotus feet of Shri Krishna. Well, we've run out of time. We're sorry about that. No time left. 9 o'clock. We'll tell it this evening. Okay? 9 o'clock. We'll try to. Is that okay?
No.
No? I can tell it now that I'll take 30 minutes. Maybe 20. I can tell it quick. Summarize. Lord Chaitanya was in ecstasy telling this story. Because when he saw this deity of Shri Chora Gopinath, and when the condensed milk preparations, his heart was just over-flooded with love for Madhavendra Puri. He had heard all about Madhavendra Puri from his spiritual master Ishwar Puri. So he recounted what he'd heard. How Madhavendra Puri. And we'll just go back a little bit to the story beginning a little bit earlier. Not much other than this story is mentioned about Madhavendra. In those days there were no tape recorders, there were no, people didn't write biographies much, there were just some notes here and there. And Madhavendra Puri particularly was a very emblem of humility. He would always keep out of the limelight, basically. Humility personified. He never liked to be praised. He never liked to be in the center. He was so humble and unassuming in every respect. And he also had a particular nature that he would never eat. He would never ask for anything to eat. Only if someone brought prasadam. Only then would he eat. Otherwise he would never eat. So he was on his pilgrimage. He was a sannyasi traveling around India. And one time he came to Vrindavan and he went to Govardhan Hill, and there in ecstasy. At Govardhan Hill, remembering the pastimes of the Lord at Govardhan Hill. And he came to the place, which I'm sure many of you have been there. Which place did he sit? Where was his bhajan kutir? Govardhan Hill? Who knows? Where is Madhavendra Puri's bhajan kutir in Govardhan Hill? Govinda Kund. I'm sure you've been there many times to Govinda Kund. Amazing place. It's my favourite place in one sense in Govardhan. I like to stay there. Feed the monkeys. Lots of monkeys there to feed. Many pastimes took place there. This is the place where when Indra tried to, quite an extraordinary thing, he tried to kill the residents of Vrindavan. Believe it or not. And then when he came to his senses, he came to this place. Krishna was with his coward boyfriends at in the area of Govinda Kund. It wasn't Govinda Kund in those days, but in that area. And Indra came there with Airavata, his elephant carrier, and there he performed a puja of the Lord, begging for his forgiveness, etc. Ritualistic pujas. And all the demigods came and did abhishek of different substances, and from each and every demigod a different kund was formed around Govardhan. Different names, Apsara Kund, Jwala Kund, Rudra Kund, so many different kunds in this Govinda Kund, where Indra himself bathed the Lord and offered his prayers to Lord Govinda. It became known as Govinda Kund. And there was where Madhavendra Puri sat to perform his bhajan, his worship of the Lord. And, amazing enough, he was sat there for quite some time. He wouldn't eat unless anyone, if nobody brought, he would fast. He was fasting and performing his bhajan, absorbed in loving internal samadhi, loving service to the Lord. After some time, a small cowherd boy appeared on the scene from the local village. Gosai, Gosai. Oh, Hare Krishna. Gosai, please take this pot of milk. He gave him a pot of milk. This is for you. Madhavendra Puri said, oh, who are you? Oh, I am a cowherd boy from the local village. How did you know I was here? Oh, some of the local cowherd girls, when they were passing by, they saw you, and they saw that you were fasting. So they sent me to you with this pot of milk, because in our village, nobody fasts. Madhavendra was astonished. But I have to go quickly. I have to herd the cows. I have to go quickly. I will come back later to collect the pot. Madhavendra was astonished. There was something mystical about this boy. He relished that milk like milk that he'd never tasted before. It was something extraordinary. That night, he was all night chanting, performing his bhajan. So at one point of time, he just rested for a little while. And in that, and he had a vision. We would say a dream, but it's a real vision. Suddenly, that little boy returned in his dream. Because he didn't come back. Madhavendra was wondering, where is that boy? He never came back. What's going on? He never came back to get the pot. In the dream, that boy appeared again. Oh, my dear devotee, oh Madhavendra, please, please, I need your help. I have been suffering for so long here in the bushes of Vrindavan. I was placed here in the bushes by my priest many, many years ago when the Muslims invaded. He hid me in the bush and then he left, never to return. I have been in the bushes, in the jungles around Govardhan for so long, suffering the heat and the cold. And on he went. And I have an intense fever. Please, please, Madhavendra, please come and bring me from the jungle and worship me. Madhavendra Puri woke up shocked. It was the same boy who brought the milk. It was actually the deity of Gopal. He was astonished. Immediately, Madhavendra went into the village, telling everyone in the village what had happened. In those days, people had a little bit of devotion and faith. Nowadays, people won't believe a word you say. You're crazy. Get out of here. But then they were devoted and sincere, and they could tell Madhavendra Puri was a greatly elevated devotee, so they followed what he said. And in the dream, of course, he had a vision where the actual spot was. So they went. And we love doing this drama. When we do this drama, we actually have in the bushes, we have lots of thorn bushes here. This is a way we could get rid of all the thorn bushes. We find a nice secluded place in the midst of a huge thorn bush area with a beautiful deity of Gopal. And then we have everyone with, going all around, chopping down all the thorns to find Gopal. in the jungle of thorn bushes. We did that in South Africa one time, cutting down all these weeds and thorn bushes, and inside was there we had Gopal deity. Whole audience, 50, 100 devotees, all working on it. It was ecstatic drama. And I remember every time I see any of those devotees today in Vrindavan, I'll never forget that drama you did in our Namahat in South Africa. That was 25 years ago. It just sticks in the mind, you know. And so then they went in, and sure enough, there they found, hidden in the jungle, this beautiful deity of Gopal, covered in dust and leaves and everything. Big deity. So Madhavendra Puri and all the devotees there, they carried the deity, big stone deity, big marble deity, they carried the deity. He asked to be worshipped on top of Govardhan Hill. So they carried that deity up to the top of Govardhan Hill, cleaned the deity thoroughly, and on a nice stone slab. And then Madhavendra Puri oversaw the entire Abhishek ceremony, installing the deity on top of Govardhan. Just visualize this. Take your heart away from everything around us. Go to Govardhan Hill. We could all do this down at Govardhan in Little India one year. We can do this drama. Amazing experience. Installing Gopal on top of Govardhan Hill. Everyone taking part in the Abhishek ceremony. Madhavendra Puri personally doing all the various rites and rituals and so on. And then after cleaning the deity and rubbing oils, scented oils into the deity, and dressing the deity, everything, such a wonderful ceremony. Thousands of people were beginning to gather, and then of course to offer prasadam to the deity. People were coming on Boga, were coming from villages all around with huge quantities of foodstuffs which were being prepared by different brahmins, offered to the deities. It said it just looked just like the Anakut ceremony of Govardhan Puja. It was such a wonderful, wonderful festival going on there. So in this way they were worshipping the deity on top of Govardhan Hill. After some time, Madhavendra Puri had another vision, dream. Gopal appeared again in his dream. My dear devotee, I'm so thankful and pleased with your service, but still my fever has not subsided. I'm still experiencing high fever. Please release my fever. I want you to go to South India and collect Malayan sandalwood and massage my body with that sandalwood. Madhavendra Puri came out of his dream, immediately prepared to execute the order of Gopal. He initiated several local Brahmins in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, or not then Gaudiya, but in pure Vaishnavism, and entrusted them to the worship of Gopal. And Madhavendra Puri set off on his long journey, thousands of kilometers, walking to South India alone to collect sandalwood, Malaya sandalwood, very special sandalwood. Originally came from Malaysia. Prabhupada writes, originally this sandalwood was very common in Malaysia, but now only rubber trees are there. They don't even have rubber trees anymore, they only have palm oil trees. So he walked and walked and walked. And when Madhavendra Puri reached Remuna, he heard about the wonderful kheer that was offered to Gopinath there. So he stayed there overnight actually. That was his plan. And his intention was to find out if it would be possible to prepare this famous kheer for his Gopal. So when he got there, he stayed there for the arti. The arti was going on. And there, traditionally, they leave the offering on the altar during the arti. And that happens in some places. It's already offered. It's no big deal. So he was meditating and thinking, perhaps if I could taste this kheer, I would be able to understand the method of preparing this kheer. But as soon as he saw this thought come in his mind, oh, what a wicked thought has entered my mind. The offering is still before the Lord, and I'm thinking of tasting it, even though it wasn't for his enjoyment, it was for the pleasure of Gopal. Still he was thinking like that. And as soon as the arti was over, without staying a minute longer, at this point nobody knew who he was, he left the temple. I'm too sinful. I've thought about enjoying my tongue when the Lord is still, the offering's still in front of the Lord. So he left the temple and he went to the marketplace to stay the night. He was just lying down somewhere in a corner in the marketplace. Every town in India has a marketplace with many stalls and so on. Of course it was closed, nobody around. So he lay down there to take a little rest. The first, actually he wasn't even resting. He was just chanting and chanting all night long. Oh, what a sinful thought. He was lamenting and repenting for his thoughts, not for his actions, but for his thoughts. In the meantime, the deity was put to rest, and the priest of Gopinath took rest also. But in the middle of the night, the priest had a dream. In his dream, Gopinath appeared and said, "My dear Sevai, I want you to wake up, please, and go down to the temple. Open the door, go into the deity room where I am standing, resting. And there I want you to look underneath my dress, and you will find one pot of kheer. I want you to take that pot of kheer to the marketplace and deliver that pot to my dearmost devotee, Madhavendra Puri." The priest woke up, boom, and took the words of Gopinath in the dream as life and salt. He went down into the temple, and sure enough, hidden behind the deity under his cloth was a pot of kheer. The deity had snatched one pot of kheer from the offering and hidden it under his dress. Nobody knew. The priest took it to the market and was calling out, "Is there anyone here the name Madhavendra Puri? Is there anyone here the name Madhavendra Puri?" Madhavendra Puri was in performing bhajan. He heard his name mentioned. Someone's calling my name. Yes, that's the name I'm known by. My dear Madhavendra, he offered his obeisances to Madhavendra. You are the most fortunate person. Gopinath has sent me here to deliver this pot of kheer for you. Please accept this kheer. Madhavendra was astonished. He took the kheer. The priest left. And Madhavendra Puri was in total, what to say? How was this ecstasy? Well, he couldn't, indescribable. He took that kheer a little bit, and he took that kheer, and every day, he immediately left, actually. He said, "I cannot stay here a moment longer. What happens if people find out about this? This will be a disaster. If people find out what happened, I might become famous. And people may praise me. This will be terrible." He left immediately, going through the jungles on his way to South India to collect sandalwood. And he also, well, I was imitating, he kept that clay pot every day. He would eat a piece of that clay pot. And eventually he reached Puri on the way to South India. When he reached Puri, it said that the fame of a great person goes before them. Everyone had already heard the incident of how Gopinath stole the pot of kheer for Madhavendra. So when he arrived there, it became known this is that Madhavendra Puri. Everybody was unavoidably honouring him. And of course that wasn't what he wanted, but you can't avoid it. When one's freed of all these things, Krishna provides them, because we're no longer going to be over money. When we have no longer a desire to use it for myself, or the thing I collected, I did it, I'm doing it, Krishna will provide unending, actually. We won't be misusing it, we're not a miser anymore. So the king of Puri came to find out about it, and he asked what was his mission, and he explained the Sandalwood Mission. Said, you do not need to go any further. I have a vast stock of Malayan sandalwood here. I will willingly and happily give you whatever amount you want. So the Madhavendra Puri received from the king of Puri a vast quantity of this Malayan sandalwood, together with the finest camphor. I think it was about 30 kilos of sandalwood, which Madhavendra Puri personally carried. The king made all arrangements to go through any toll gates, taxes, whatever was present at the time. Together with the camphor, he went alone on the path, carrying this sandalwood, a heavy load, walking alone, 30, 40 kilos of camphor and sandalwood, carrying it alone on his back. And eventually he came back to Ramuna. When he reached Ramuna, there he, again, by now, of course, everyone knew who he was, and everybody gave him all respects and accommodation and everything, and he stayed there for the arti, the kirtan, and for the kir in the evening, and so on and so forth. And he rested there overnight, and then he had another vision dream, and for a few moments he would hardly sleep. But he took some rest, and this time Gopal appeared again in his dream. Said, my dear most devotee, I am so indebted to you for the menial service, your sacrifice of carrying this sandalwood on your alone for my pleasure, and undergoing all kinds of tribulations and risks. Gopinath is non-different than me. His body and my body, we are one and the same. Please stay there in Ramuna, and with this sandalwood and camphor, massage the body of Gopinath every day, and this will relieve my fever. So happily, of course, for the devotees of Ramuna, Madhavendra Puri stayed there, and he massaged the deity every day of Gopinath. In this way, the Lord's fever, Gopal's fever, was removed. So we'll finish there because time is very late, and we'll finish up with a few more things this evening. Srila Madhavendra Puri Tirobha Maha Mahotsava Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi. Hare Krishna. So we have kheer for breakfast. Where's the kheer? Definitely on this day we should make kheer in the future. And it's not just like sweet rice. This is condensed milk, and it takes a long time to cook. To cook it down, pure milk cooked down.
You know, I heard one pastime here one time, Ashisha Prabhu. You heard this, he cooked some special sweet rice. You heard the pastime?
I don't.
I was not there, but I heard it. That he thought, let me cook a very special sweet rice for Krishna Balaram.
On this day?
No, maybe not. And so he cooked the special sweet rice, and the class was going on, and suddenly they heard a big noise. So when the Pujari went back on the altar, Lord Balaram's club had fallen and hit the Govardhan and the Govardhan jumped into the sweet rice.
Oh my goodness. Hare Krishna. You heard that before, Goswami? That's something to be recorded. I've never heard that before. That's an incredible pastime. You must record that one. That's got to be published. That's an amazing pastime. Wow. Lord Balaram's club hit flew in the air and landed in the street rice. My God, some pastime going on there between Balaram and Giriraj, that's for sure.
We also had Little Krishna.
Pardon?
We also had Little Krishna for, I don't remember which festival, probably it was for Radharani. We had Radhakund and altar for Radhakund with a fish inside.
Fish, a real fish.
Yeah. And I don't remember
with some decoration, boom, in the class and, fell down. When inside, where is Krishna? Little Krishna. Good, Krishna was in Vrindavan.
Oh my goodness. You've got to write these things down, they're far out, This really makes the birds happy and increases their devotion, These type of things. Write it down. Publish it.
Yeah?
Why does somebody... Who's going to publish it? Who's going to put this on the internet, please? Who's going to... Sundar, you're going to put this on the internet? Who's going to do it? Someone's got to do it. Someone who knows how to do it. It should be on Dandavats, it should be on the Facebook, whatever you do these days. So the world knows of it. Otherwise you're going to pass away and nobody will ever know about it again.
It's in your book, no?
Yeah.
Which book?
Memories.
Huh? Memories book? You have a memories book?
I'm writing.
You're writing, okay, it's in your book, but still it should be put out first because you never know.
Yeah.
Things get lost.
Yeah.
Can't take the risk. Put it out there. You do it, you've done it. Two wonderful stories there, put them out.
Yeah.
Transcendental pastimes. Both related to Govardhan Hill. That's special. Okay. How many days is it to go Purnima? I've forgotten.